Welcome to Business 214 Fun with Advanced Excel. Hey, this is vblog 9. We're still talking about statistics. We're in our workbook chapter 2. Hey, we got 3 exciting topics to cover here. We want to look at the COUNTIF to build a frequency table. Then we want to build a chart. Our first chart, we're going to build a histogram, which is just column chart with the columns touching. And then we're going to look at the large and small function. Hey, here's our sales reps. And we want to count how many sales each sales rep have. Now I'm going to highlight the whole range. And in the light colored cell at the top, I'm going to use my COUNTIF equals COUNTIF open parentheses. Now I'm going to use my table nomenclature here, SD, square bracket. And what do I want to count? A sales rep. So I'm going to double click, close square bracket. Now, the COUNTIF requires a range and a criteria. So the range is, it'll look through all of these cells. And the criteria, that's what it's going to count. So I'm going to type comma. The screen tip moves to bold. And then I click 1 to my left. Close parentheses. This formula, this range is locked. That is not. It's not locked. So when I Control Enter, it will copy it all the way down and properly count each sales rep. Control Enter. No way, there it is. 14, Al, Megan, 14, 6 for Lung, Gwen, 7, Michelle, 8, and Joel, 10. Now, let's calculate the relative frequency. Hey, what is relative? Relate. Frequency, what's the relative? That means compare all the parts to the total. Hey, look right there. I've already added them up. Highlight all of these. In the cell in the light color range to the top equals 1 cell to my left divided by B34, which is locked going down. I'm copying down across the row. So I'm going to hit my F4 key twice to lock it in front of the number. That means the row reference is locked. So when I copy it down, it'll be locked on row 34. Control Enter. There it is. I'm going to add them all up just to make sure these are mutually exclusive categories. So if I add them all up, Alt equals Enter, it better equal 100%. Or if I click on that cell and use the keyboard shortcut to go back to general format, that's Control-Shift tilde, I see 1. Hey, now let's rank them. We already did this one. Equals RANK, open parentheses. The number we want to rank is 1 to my left, comma, the reference is all of them, F4 to lock them. F4 twice because I'm only copying them down. The dollar sign's only in front of the number. By the way, a little trick here. When you're highlighting a whole range, if you immediately hit the F4, it'll work on both cell references. If you come back to it later, it won't work on both cell references. So when I hit F4 twice, it puts the dollar signs in front of both. And then comma, I need to tell it what order. Descending, that means from the biggest to the smallest, which is what we're going to do, or ascending from the smallest to the biggest. All right, there's a I'm going to type a 0, close parentheses, Control Enter. Now let's compare these. Al still has number 1 here and here. Megan. Oh, Megan's 1. Megan, got 2 here, but in terms of sales, they're tied for 1. Then it jumps to 3. 3's here. 4. 4's here. 5. 5's here. So it looks like, it's in the same order. This I think it is, yeah. All right, let's move on to our next little, this will be our first chart. Now, what I really would like to do, if we click over on this next sheet here, the answer, scroll up. Let's see, where is the chart? Oh, right there. This is what we're shooting for. I'm going to click on this and then Control Roll to roll up. What I want is a histogram, and a histogram is simply a column chart with the columns touching. Now look at here. This is class 0 up to $250, and then 2,500 up to 5,000, and then 5,000 up to 7,500. This is counting the sales. So there were 12 sales between 2,500 and 5,000. The most sales occurred, the most frequent, 16 sales happened between the 7,500 and the 10,000 range. Now the reason why the columns are touching is because this data spans this whole class 0 up to 2,500. That whole range right there is represented by the column. And then immediately the next part of immediately the next possible number right there all the way to there is represented by this. So that's why the columns are touching. By the way, 0 up to 2,500 means the 2,500 is not included in this one. It's here, 2,500 up to, but not including 5,000. All right, now let's go back to our sheet tab statistics. Now what we have to do here is some pretty tricky. Now I want to look back over here on the stats rand. I can see the limit I had here was 2,000 to 2,500. So the chart we're looking at is 2,000 to 2,500. But actually I want to do it on this one, statistics answer. I want the amounts from 0 up to 2,000. But the beautiful thing about all this is we'll build it so that we can change it to anything we want instantly. Right now it's set from 0 to 2,000. Now let's go back to our statistics tab. And before we can create our chart, we need to create the lower limits and upper limits: 0, 2,000, 2,000, 4,000, etc. And we're going to base all of these on these two input numbers. Now, you have to do a little thinking about how to set this up. And let's scroll up. We did our max and min up here. The minimum is 791. The maximum is 12,000. So when we figure out our number of classes, which is, we do that in a statistics class, we figure out how to figure out the exact appropriate amount, but it's total common sense. Obviously, the first class has to be lower than 791, and the last class has to be able to include the maximum. So that's kind of what I did here. We'll do it based on 2,000s. And later, we'll actually change this input, and we'll see not only will these upper and lower limits, but the labels for the chart, the frequency, and the chart itself will all update. It'll be quite amazing. All right, our lower limit, I'm going to say equals that. Tab. The upper limit is equals one cell to my left plus the increment or class interval, and I'm going to lock it with a $ in front of the number because we're copying it down across numbers. Control Enter. This is always going to be equals to one cell up and one cell over. Oh, right, because this is 0 up to 2,000, and this one is 2,000 up to whatever it is here. Now I'm going to click here and copy it down one row. Oh, there it is. That if you click on that cell and hit F2, you see, oh, isn't that clever? Whatever the lower limit is here, plus the interval. Escape. Now I'm going to highlight both formulas and click on my fill handle. When I see my angry rabbit, I'm going to click and drag down. There it is. Will that last class include the maximum here? Sure it will. There's the 12,000. Oh, cool. This is exciting. Now, we're going to do a little concatenation now. Let's look over here on this. That's really hard to do with the chart. Histograms always, people always complain, how do I get this label here? Here it is. We use concatenation using the ampersand to join some numbers and some text. And then when we make our chart, we just highlight this range. Oh, this is so nice, so exciting. All right, you ready? I'm going to highlight the whole range. And in the light cell at the top, I'm going to say equals that 0 and, which is the ampersand, in quotes, space, up to, space, end quote, ampersand. So far I've combined whatever's 2 cells to my left and this text and 1 cell to my left. That formula right there will work all the way down. You ready? Control Enter. Ew, yuck. That's just listing the numbers. I want them formatted. With this cell still light colored, I'm going to hit F2 to put it in edit mode, rangefinder. Now watch this. There's a dollar function. I'm going to click in front of the first cell and type DOLLAR, open parentheses. Then I'm going to click right at the end of it and close parentheses. Now this function allows you, this is for text formulas like this, to convert a number to text formatted as a dollar. Same thing here. By the way, you can, it has decimals there, but you don't really need to do that because most oftentimes you want to go to the penny. In fact, hey, we don't need to go to the penny, so let's use this second argument, comma 0. Just like in taxes, you round to the dollar. Now I'm going to come over here, DOLLAR, open parentheses. I'm going to come up here to my formula bar because it's hanging over here into the next cell, and sometimes you get in trouble, comma 0, close parentheses. That's the formula right up there. Control Enter, work all the way down. That is amazing. That is a great trick. That is a great example for why we need to know how to do concatenating to create labels sometimes. And the beauty of this is, if you didn't do it this way, it'd be really hard to just change one of these inputs and have these change, the labels change, and when we later make the chart, have everything changed. All right, let's count the frequencies. Now we're going to use 2 COUNTIFs. And I want to just think about this for a moment. If we were able to, and I drew a little picture here, yellow and black. If I were going to count between two numbers, there's a couple ways to do it in Excel. One way is to use the COUNTIF. We're going to use two COUNTIFs. What if we counted everything less than 2,000? Remember, less than 2,000 would count everything less than 2,000. And it would not include 2,000. But what if this whole amount right here was less than 2,000? In fact, I'm going to tell this story from this one, because with the 0, it makes it a little bit harder to understand. But let's talk about 4,000 and 2,000, because there's some numbers below 2,000. Let's imagine that counting less than 4,000, I was going to highlight this whole range here. So just simply count less than 4,000 would give me maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 values. But what if I subtracted from that total amount less than 2,000? If I say less than 2,000, the 2,000 will not be included in this count. Let's say there's 2 less than 2,000. That would mean 4 minus 2 would give us the difference here between the two. And that's one way to count between two numbers. All right, let's highlight this whole range here. And in the top cell at the top equals COUNTIF, open parentheses. Now the range, you can go down and highlight the whole range and lock it if you want, because we're going to need that. Or we could do our table nomenclature, SD, square bracket. And this is sales, so I'm going to tab. If that's highlighted, I can just hit tab. Close square brackets. Now, the criteria, comma, less than. We need to click less than and click on this cell right here. So when we copy down, it'll always count less than the upper limit. Now, how do I do that? I can't just type less than 2,000 like that. I could, but then I'd have to actually type out every one of these formulas. Now, with SUMIF and COUNTIF, you can't do a symbol like that and a number in this formula in this way right here. You actually have to put the symbol less than in quotes. So in quotes, less than quotes. Now, the way to combine two things, you use the ampersand and then click on this. That formula right there is how to build criteria for SUMIF and COUNTIF and using a number from a cell as an assumption. Now I'm going to close parentheses. What I really want, though, is two COUNTIFs. I want to take this minus the COUNTIF of this. And when I copy down, it'll always count just between those two numbers. Watch this. I'm going to copy this right here because I don't want to retype it. Control C. I'm going to come up to the formula bar because at this point, when it's hanging off into the next cell, you run the risk of clicking and messing up your formula. So up here, I'm going to say minus and Control V. In 2007, you can point to the formula bar edge, and when you see that cursor, you can click and drag. Now, right now, this would be 0 because it would count whatever those two things are, and it would be 0. But now, double-click the B39. And now click on, instead of 1, 2 cells to my left, I'm going to click 1, 2, 3 cells to my left. That formula will work all the way down. I have it here. I'm going to Control Enter. No way. It counted all of them. 12 here, 6 here, 5 here. Now we have what we need to make our chart. We highlight the labels for each series. These are going to be the labels. These are going to be the numbers. In general, the way you do it in Excel when you're making a chart is you put the labels to the left and the numbers to the right. Now we go up to Insert. Oh, but wait a second. There's a cool keyboard shortcut in 2000. I probably should show you it this way just because this is the first time we've seen in 2007 a chart. You have to go to the Insert menu and then Charts. Click the drop down. Actually, if you have your ribbon totally expanded, you could see all these. And we want Column. So I'm going to click on Column and then click on that. Now, watch, let me show you the keyboard shortcut. There's the keyboard shortcut for the default chart. It is Alt F1. Alt F1. Let me do that again. Escape. Alt F1. Let me do that again. Hold Alt and tap F1. I knew it would work eventually. I had to hold Alt and hit tap. And I hit F1 there. I was all messing up. So there's a keyboard shortcut for the default chart to have it show up on a sheet. By the way, if you want it as a new sheet tab, it would be F11. Is the keyboard shortcut to insert the chart as a new sheet. But to insert a chart on this sheet would be Alt F1. All right, here it is. We need to do a couple things to clean this up. I'm going to click on this frequency legend and hit the delete key. Get rid of that. I'm going to click on the columns, and I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut for format cells, which also works for chart elements, Control 1. You could also right-click format data series. Whatever you do, make sure that all the columns are highlighted. I'm going to Control 1. Gap width is what we want. In earlier versions, you had to go to the Options tab. Notice the tabs in this version, 2007, are over here. They used to be across the top. Now I'm going to slide this. And at the bottom here off the screen, you can't see it, but click Close. No way, that's how you make the columns touch. Now I need to do some more things back down there, so I'm going to Control 1. And there's an excellent little option here under Fill. No way, vary colors by point. And then click Close. Oh, that is delightful. Now I want the frequency at the top of each one. So I'm going to go to, oh, look, a context-sensitive menu. Chart tools. There's Design, there's Layout, and Format. These are all context-sensitive ribbons. I'm going to click on Layout. Then I'm going to click on Labels. Then I'm going to click on Data Labels. And I'm going to go all the way down here. There's all these options here. And actually, this one will work. But these are all the options down here. I'm going to click down here. And I'm going to click Outside End and then Close. There it is. So it shows you up at the top there. Notice these labels. Aren't they cool? Man, that's so cool. We need to add labels because on a chart, you need to let the person know what this is and what this is. So I'm going to go back up to Layout Context Sensitive Chart Tools ribbon and click on Labels. Axis titles, because these are axis, X and Y axis, the horizontal and the vertical. I'm going to click on like this, and we're going to do vertical first. I'm going to click whichever one. I could do this one. I'm going to do this one right. Actually, I'm going to do this one right here. That means the words will go that way, like that. I'm going to type, click inside of here. I'm going to Control A to highlight everything instead of trying to mess around with my cursor. And I'm going to type frequency. Look like here. Layout. Layout. And you see here, this is the fully expanded version. But when you have your ribbon kind of all squished up because I have it restored down, then you can't see it. But that's what they look like. The labels group right there, and then axis labels. Primary horizontal is what we want, and then title below axis. And there it is. It shows up right there. I'm going to click somewhere in there and then Control A to select it all. And then I'm going to type sales classes, or in parentheses, categories. Now I'm going to scoot this back over here and restore down so I can fit in everything in on the screen. So there we have it. One last thing, we need to click up in the title here. And click up here. Control A, and then we want to type the word histogram. Histogram. And then click somewhere, and there we have our chart. Now, let's see this chart in action. Let me scroll down here just a little bit. Let's change the size of the class interval. Let's change this to 2,500. Now, the whole reason we built this, because there are automatic ways to add histograms, but they don't give you the ability to change the interval and have everything flow through and change. The way we built it is using our rules of efficiency in Excel. Now I'm going to change this interval to, let's change this one to 500, and then change this one here to 2,500. Instantly, if I scroll this out of the way, instantly I can see the lower, the upper, the labels, the frequencies, everything changed, including the charts. That is simply amazing. So that's our first chart that we've done. We did a histogram. I'm going to scroll over here. We have one more exciting topic for this video. We have the sales data, but we want to find the top 5 sales and then the smallest 5 sales. We're going to use the function large and then the function small. Let's highlight this whole range here, and we'll do large equals large, open parentheses. The array, we'll use SD, square bracket, tab, square bracket, comma, that's the range we're looking for, and 1 to my left. That'll find the first biggest. Now, if you use 1 here, this is exactly like the max. If you use 2, 3, 4, 5, it's not like max at all. It finds the second biggest, the third biggest, the fourth biggest. I'm going to Control Enter. And no way, I have a little fancy formula there that looked up the sales rep. There are the 5 largest. Let's go see how to do small right here. Highlight that. Equals small, open parentheses. The array is SD square bracket, tab, square bracket, comma, 1 cell to my left, close parentheses. That is the small function. It's going to look through that range. It's going to find the first smallest, the second smallest, the third smallest, etc. Control Enter. And there it is. And there's the sales rep. By the way, here is some an or. If we talk about in Chapter 4, or we talk about in Chapter 4, and index we talk about in Chapter 5. So that's exciting topics coming up. All right, in our next vlog, we're going to scroll ahead and briefly talk about the normal curve and then do some more charts. All right, see you next vlog.